Hello my friends, and how are you doing? Today I want to make a video about me. This video is inspired by my flatmate. I talked with him and he said, hey, your community kind of deserves an update about what is going on with you or why you made less videos in the last 2.5 months. So that is what I want to talk about. Now, let's start at the beginning. When I started to talk about AI was massively inspiring for me artistically, creatively, also a very big historic moment, especially with Midjourney, because the images it created have been basically from another dimension. It showed us another reality. So my concept was, because I thought this is really a changing moment in the history of mankind, I want to be an important part of that. So I wanted to do a video every single day about the newest, most important topic, explain it in a really easy way so that you can be part of that. You can follow my tutorial and also use it on your own. And I think that worked mostly. I think I inspired a lot of people, even artists and startups and so on, and helped you create cool things, try out all kinds of cool tools. But of course, at the same time, I myself beat me over the head every day, not actually, but over with the numbers. No video was ever good enough, wasn't big enough, didn't get enough views. So I had a lot of ambition to really reach out to the people and be part of that history. But of course, at the same time, that leads over time, if you do that long enough, to burnout, because you just do too much, you want too much, you don't have a work-life balance, you're always on edge, always thinking about what could be the next thing. And of course, preparing videos in a good way with an easy explanation takes a ton of time. So a 10 or 15 minute video can take over 6 hours just to do all of that, So that's pretty complicated. At the same time, also, I didn't really reach out to my community to help me with that. So figuring out all that stuff on my own was very complex to install that. And I'm not good with code or anything. So that was complex. And of course, this really eats up your inner psyche and your well-being. So burnout is one of these things. But there's a second thing, and I had that way longer. I had that all of my life. And I would phrase that as existential nihilism. So when you know the show Rick and Morty, when you look at Rick, he has basically that thing. So for him, he says, well, there is unlimited realities, there is unlimited parallel universes, so everything that happened or can happen has happened somewhere, so that means that nothing matters. Of course, that is only one conclusion you can draw from that, because of course in every individual universe, the things that work or happen still matter, especially because the people can't evade this universe. They can't go anywhere else. So for them, this is the only choice, the only reality they have. But if you have existential nihilism, it is really hard to buy into that idea, because if you look at your life, a lot of stuff happened to you by chance. You were born in a certain country by chance. Your parents had a certain religion by chance, had a certain education by chance, had a certain social status by chance, and all these kind of things. You had a certain gender by chance, all these things, and they are arbitrary, which means they are random. You can't really point to anything and say, well, this is purposefully happening to me and this is my life. I'm following this guide. Like, for example, a hero in a science fiction or any kind of novel in a story, they have a certain purpose, and the purpose, all of the universe around that, the whole book is just for that purpose, so they can fulfill their hero story, and that's it. But in life, it's not like that. Everything just happens. No matter what happens, it doesn't really have any purpose, any meaning in the grander picture. Of course, in itself, it has meaning, but basically it also means that you have to construct that meaning. And I always really had a hard time with that, to say, I just act like this is important, even though I have a lot of stuff that's important to me in my life. And that is this kind of psychological disconnect that leads to depression, basically, where I have a very strong direction of being very interested in culture and art and philosophy, these kind of things, design also. I love beautiful things. But at the same time, taking that serious and taking that on its head value and say, yeah, that's just what it is, wasn't easy for me. And that leads to depression, of course. But there's also another thing. I was always dissatisfied that even though I have studied art, and I'm by definition an artist. I have never felt a lot of drive to create something because I never felt like I want to show something specifically, or when I want to show something, it's often very abstract. So often people wouldn't understand what is going on in my work because it's very minimalist and abstract. So now, for me, the interesting thing was that I thought that I didn't create anything in my life, which is strange, of course, because I made hundreds of videos. I built a huge community, a following of almost 250,000 followers, almost 800,000 on Facebook, even though that community is gone because of Facebook, but never mind. So all of that you could call success. But in my mind, it was like, there is a painter who makes a great painting, and I am the person who talks about the great painting but never makes a great painting. And that really bothered me because I felt like what I do is nothing, which is really strange in hindsight now that I have reviewed myself basically through therapy. I know that I'm a good educator, that I'm very good at breaking down topics, explaining them in a simple way, and I'm also very good at finding solutions in a interesting way and seeing patterns because I'm a generalist and I have a lot of different interests that allow me to connect dots between very different industries and very different techniques that are out there and stuff like that. So that is a power on itself, and I think I'm rather good at that. But I couldn't value that for myself. That was a problem. Now, therapy helped me a lot with that. The therapy that I did is called cognitive behavioral therapy. And that means that you talk about the emotions you feel right now, how you feel sad about them, how you have problems with them. Then you look at, is it actually realistic from your perspective? Does it make sense to think like that? And how could you react differently? So that's a very basic breakdown of how that works, just so you understand. And what I found out about myself is that most of my problems, about 90 to 95% of my problems, are basically coming from me. They just exist in my mind. They don't exist outside because I have claims for myself, I have definitions for myself, I have expectations for myself that I would never put on any other person, but I put them on myself. And that leads to a lot of problems. Depression on the one side, this existential nihilism also. Then also another specific thing, it's ChatGPT told me that, by the way. It's called executive dysfunction, which means that even simple tasks, you were unable to do them. So for the last 2 months, I was sitting at the computer for hours trying to make a video, but I just couldn't. I couldn't do a video because I just didn't feel like it. I didn't feel like I had to say anything, which is strange because a lot of amazing stuff happened at the same time. And also with a lot of other things in life. For example, for me to get a VPN so I can use Sora 2 was a very hard decision. The reason why it's hard for me is because it's not allowed, So basically, I have to go behind what is allowed to access that service. And I know that's super stupid, especially because I do other things that are also not allowed and I have no problems with those things. It's hard to explain. But one thing, if you have the same problem, one thing that really helped me is to have a notebook like this. And then instead of journaling, what you can do, like I write in that, what you can do is you write there a question about yourself or something you want to feel, to uncover inside of yourself, and you write about that. Because journaling, I don't like that. Write there, oh, hello, I felt like this today, blah, blah, it was a nice day. No, I can't do that. I feel stupid doing that, But if I ask the question like, when I was young, why did I choose to study art? What did inspire me? What did I feel? What was the connection with the people, the smell of the room, the thoughts you had, the excitement about art, stuff like that? Write that out to reactivate your emotions, stuff like that. Or when you feel bad about things, like I said with the videos where I say, hey, I'm just basically reading a website to you. That's not a skill, but at the same time, it is a skill because basically, first of all, that's what news is, literally, but also figuring out the most important part and then bringing them out in a way that is easy to understand, break them down, make them visible. That is a huge skill to have. And like I said, I think I'm kind of good at that. And I love to do that also, to explain stuff to people. So that is pretty good. So working through that, was an interesting task. It worked pretty fast, about like 3 months or 4 months, 3 months, let's say, of therapy to work through all of that. Then we reached at a point where my therapist couldn't help me anymore because I overcame the problems, and not overcame, but understand the source of the problems. But then I went to rebuilding my emotions and my life. She couldn't help me with that too much. ChatGPT helped me with that a little bit, but I'm also actually pretty good at figuring out new methods for myself. For example, one method was to talk to myself in a way you would talk to a child. You know, when you can't do stuff, ask the child, why can't you do that stuff? And not in a grown-up way, because grown-up ways are often very object-oriented, success-oriented, like just finish that task, make it happen, make it good, stuff like that. Doesn't really help you when you have a problem. It's like telling an alcoholic to just put down the bottle. Doesn't work like that, right? But if you talk to a child, you talk differently because you talk more playful and you talk about the opportunity in the child, not about the task. So you say, okay, maybe just look at the thing. Don't even do anything. Just open the website, look at it, play a little bit around with it, maybe make a note about it. You don't have to do anything. Or why do you feel bad? Or what would you do with that if you had any kind of chance? You know, these kind of like playful things. So that can also help. Another thing, by the way, and don't feel criticized by that at all, because that's also a me thing, but two things I had a problem with was at the time that I felt, especially with Flux, that AI became less inspiring because the results became kind of more boring, more expected, less hallucination, less dreaming like Midjourney does it. Also, the output was less creative, artistically, less beautiful colors. I didn't really agree with that. It kind of like has a certain way of slop character to it compared to what SD 1.5 was with all these amazing community lauras, or what still Midjourney is with all of the different styles and stuff like that. So I felt a little bit of a disconnect and kind of let down by AI. Even though amazing stuff happened, I felt like AI took more of the direction of being a corporate creative advertising tool rather than an artistic enabling tool, right? So that dragged me down. I think we are getting back into a situation, especially also with stuff like Nano Banana, where you can do really creative things in your own way, and bring in your own styles or remix styles from other, even without training. So the creativity can come back. That is a good thing. But I said, don't feel criticized. This wasn't the part to be criticized. The other part that is I felt like there was more toxicity in the community, in the AI community, about expectation. Now, this is a strong phrasing, to be honest. The thing was like a lot of stuff came out, and then there was a lot of like pushback from the community, say, oh, others have also done that. Of course, they have also done that, right? Or there's a model, but this model is better, stuff like that. And for me, I felt really bad about like investing, let's say 6 hours into a video and then like having half of the comments saying, oh, that's shit because that model is not as good as that model, and this Laura is better than that, and that company is not cool because they do this and that. Yeah, but I'm just reporting about that, you know. I didn't make that model, but I still felt bad about the comments, you know. And also, of course, negative comments always impact you more than positive comments. So you can get like 50 positive comments and then 5 negative ones, and you feel like, they all hate me, even though they have been at a certain time a lot of negative comments. But I also figured out, I talked to some pretty successful creators, also with live streaming, because I feel like that's even more immediate. And I said, hey, how do you handle that when that happens to you? And one very successful woman said to me, I don't see them as real people. And that's, first of all, it sounds really strange, and I asked, hey, like, how do you mean that? Because they are real people. And she said, yeah, they are. But at that moment, first of all, they don't know who you are. They also not talking about you. They also maybe right now feel a certain way. Maybe they had a hard day. Maybe they split up with their girlfriend. Maybe something else happened. So they let off some steam, stuff like that. But it's important to keep in mind that that comment has nothing to do with you. It's not oriented at you, or it might be just an online troll, stuff like that. So in that sense, it's not real. Don't take it serious in any way. You can listen, of course, to feedback and stuff like that and improve your channel over time, but don't buy into the emotional baggage that comes with that. Just let that go, because that is not real and they don't even know you, right? And that really, really helped to see it that way, to have that kind of perspective on that. And so now, at this moment in time, I feel like my interest is coming back. I have a different connection to how I interact with the community. I like what AI is doing right now, even if some stuff is corporate or not, no matter, but it is interesting things happening that are really changing the world. I still feel in a very positive way, but we have to see where it goes in the future. There's one more thing I wanted to talk about. Let me remember. Oh, yes. The last thing I want to talk about is success. I would say I had considerable success inside of the AI community with my channel, with the growth of the channel. Also the income, even though I let a lot of money on the table, because I did basically no sponsorships. I did like a couple of, maybe a handful of sponsorships in all of these years. I could have made so much money, but I just didn't feel like it, or online courses. I didn't do that, all that kind of stuff. So most of the money I didn't even take, even I had the opportunity. But with that money, with the success I had from my channel, I didn't feel better. I didn't feel happier. I didn't feel like anything had a huge positive impact, where you feel like, oh, when you're up there, you feel like a superstar. You don't. Everybody is like, oh, suddenly you have a lot of friends. You have a nice girlfriend or stuff like that. Doesn't happen, at least not for me, So I was very disappointed with that my life is basically the same. I have the same kind of depression. I have the same kind of problems. Back then, not now. But that's also a good thing for me, and from my perspective, that's a good thing, because I figured out for myself, I don't need success. I don't need that money, It's good to have some money to feel safe and to afford what you want to afford, but I don't need much money, and I don't need much success. I don't need to have 1 million followers. So that goal is like, if it happens, it might happen, but I don't care about that. It probably never will happen, but that's okay with me. And so for me, I figured out it should also be about me, because the channel, I love to do the channel for you, and I see you as my online family, and I do the stuff because I want to help you and inspire you and share these things with you, and I love to do things for other people more than I love to do things for myself. But a part of that is also me, And so I can be okay with creating content where it is about my interests in how I look at AI, how I would use AI, what I feel interested about AI, but also probably increasingly in the future also including photography, because on the one hand, photography is something that always has interested me, but also I feel like photography is something that is real and virtual at the same time, and AI has a very interesting connection to that, The reason why I said it, and I will make a video about that soon, is because what I realized for myself, everybody photographs differently, but for myself, what I realized is when I take a photo and then edit it afterwards, what happens in front of the lens is just what happens there. I don't have much influence on that. It's just the world. It doesn't have any meaning. But then when I edit it afterwards, I fill it with what I see, basically with my inner eye, with my emotions. I fill it with the expression of what I want to show, what I have seen in that moment, but also what I felt. Of course, what I felt was never part of that moment, but I make it part of the moment through the editing, through changing the lighting, the cropping and everything in the image to make it what I feel is what I want to show as a story. So basically, in a certain sense, the image that I took as a photo was never real, because the end result that I'm showing, if it is an edited end result like that, is something that only happened inside of myself. I photographed the inside, not the outside. And because of that, I feel like AI has a huge connection to that, because it can help to change these kind of situations, influence them, bring out the emotion, the purpose, the connection you feel rather than what is just happening in front of your camera. And of course, I completely understand there is documentary photography and stuff like that, and that has to be as real as possible, as unedited as possible. But I don't have to do that. I can do whatever I want. So a lot of people like to edit their photos. And of course, a lot of people like artistic expression and to see the emotion, to listen or to experience a story, especially an emotional story from another person. And I think that is still also one of the big powers of AI, is to be able to bring out the emotion from inside of you, overcome the skill hurdle and create something that is amazing, is wonderful, but at the same time, it is unique, an individual emotional expression of how you feel inside and the world in the way that you see it, even though that world is artificial, but you are artificial in the world yourself, because you are you and the world is the rest, you know? So yeah, that is the full story. That is how I feel right now about my channel and myself and you, in extension of that, of course. So let's see where everything of that goes. But yeah, I feel like I'm way more excited again about AI. My emotions are back. My excitement is back. And yeah, I want to do, of course, a lot more content about that and inspire you and take you along with me on that journey and give you way more inspirations in the future. I hope that was interesting to watch and it wasn't too long. Thank you very much. And yeah, see you soon. Bye.